We're live.
Very good. Thank you. Good afternoon and welcome to the Buncombe County Home and Community Care Block Grant Advisory Committee meeting for October 22nd. October already. Holy cow, time is flying.
Last November.
I know. Housekeeping first, any revisions to the agenda? Hearing none. Do I have a motion to approve? Second? Eileen, second. The meeting minutes, those fantastic meeting minutes. Any revisions to the meeting minutes? Hearing none, motion to approve. First. Go ahead. Eileen, second. Very good. Okay. Jumping right in. In the units of service. And the supplemental aging funds. I guess there were two things that I noticed on the units of service report. And maybe Zach, you could research this and let us know what's happening for our next meeting, but I was wondering about the senior companion program.
Yes, I actually talked with Dee. She is putting stuff in. She works through some other funding sources first and then starts with Home and Community Care Block Grant, but by next ARM cycle, she will have input her information in there. So
Okay. And then the other one was the Buncombe County Information and Options. That
Council agent.
Yeah. Council meeting.
I'm not exactly sure what's going on there. I know that they're still working with an interim director, Judy. I think that they are, yeah, it may just be that they overlooked putting it in for a month or two.
Okay, well, just let us know, if you could follow up on that, that would be great.
Mhm.
And the other thing I noticed, if you look at, for example, Pisgah Legal Services, the last one on the units, they are providing a ton of service. Also, I noticed the respite, let's see, medical transportation, group respite at Jewish Family Services is also at 93% of the grant served. And also Meals on Wheels, almost halfway through their funding. So. Not surprised.
Regarding Pisgah Legal, they have multiple funding sources, correct?
Mhm.
So I don't understand what the rationale is, or do you have any knowledge about how, like, we're gonna spend all this grant first and then we'll go to this, or how we do it?
I am sure what they're doing is counting everybody they serve over 60. So I don't think they're segregating our services out differently from their other services. In other words, all they're doing, they're providing legal services to people of a certain income level. They do have an income level, and check people's incomes and so forth. I am sure all they're doing is counting everybody over 60 as part of our grant. I think the question I would ask is who would they be serving if they didn't have our grant? All what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they have multiple funding services, but perhaps many of those other funding resources are not specified for seniors.
Correct,
to the
exactly.
general population.
But they specifically applied for the senior law program. So if they're helping people 60 and older, that's part of their program.
Well, I think that's a good question for, maybe Zach to just give a call and let us know. Cause I think this number is gonna only increase come next month.
I mean, the other way to look at it is how much of an impact does our funding have on the services they provide?
I mean, I know when I worked at the Council on Aging, I referred a lot of clients to fiscal legal services when I couldn't help them, because they deal with the complicated.
Right, yeah, they do a lot
Yeah.
for people of a certain income level.
Right.
Okay, I mean, my question would be. I mean, I know a lot about fiscal legal, okay, but, if you're looking at the degree to which the money we provide supplements their program, I'm sure it supplements their program. They don't need us to provide services to people 60 and over. They would be providing, if we shifted our money to Legal Aid of North Carolina, which is also a nonprofit, state-operated legal services agency, it probably wouldn't make that much difference to what, which actually does have a senior program. It probably wouldn't make that much difference in what they do. So it depends on how you look at it. Our mission is not to provide legal services to people over 60. I think our mission is to provide services to people over 60 as needed. And provided, whatever. That's a very healthy organization.
But the Home and Community Care Block Grant Fund, does have legal services as one of their.
Yeah, and we provided to them,
Right.
right?
Susan, you said you thought that number's gonna get bigger?
Well, the percent, yeah, because,
If it's 100%, I don't
no,
understand.
the next two, not that column at 100%, the next column over. That shows them at 653%. Of budget.
Right, I mean, we do not have a specific program with fiscal legal. Other than people over 65. Or 60 or whatever our number is. And so they provide services to all people, so if 40% of them are over 60, they're giving us that 40%.
Well, I would like to get clarification. I don't think we can answer this today. But if we can get clarification on how they calculated the 653.
I mean, obviously,
They don't calculate it, they just put in units and dollars. So they just put in an hour is a unit, an hour is $189. And that goes to, that is however many units they serve, they just enter it into hours. And
So,
we ask them to do that, we ask all of our providers to continue to enter units even at 100% spend, because it lets us know where they are spending wise and how much funding they could potentially take in at the end of the year.
In my interpretation of that number, the 653% was as a signal of the extent of need. People are in trouble in all kinds of ways,
Mhm.
and it's showing up there. That was my reaction.
Yeah, and I get where you're coming from too, I mean, yes, they would serve older adults without our funding, however, our funding ensures that it goes only to older adults. Because if we take away this funding, the funding that they receive, they could undercut older adult services to fund younger or whatever. you know, this is just the way
That
that,
would be age discrimination.
it's true, but
Yeah,
it's business, so.
right,
you know,
but.
Whatever they
I
get
don't think
more
it
of
shows they're in trouble.
that year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I understand where you're coming from. I understand where Billy's coming from. I also understand where Pistol Legal's coming from, who's had to lay off several attorneys. So,
I said staff, not attorneys.
I've had them tell me attorneys too,
Okay.
so. But that's, you know, that's just the way it goes. It's funding is fickle and it's uncertain, and it's all on what we decide is the most of need at that point in time.
And this kind of brings me to the discussion about the state. The state budget still hasn't been passed. No. Okay, moving right along. Mhm. The Buncombe County supplemental aging funds. It looks, okay. Before I say anything, anybody else have any observations before I jump in?
In homemade pieces, stored.
So, due to, yes, and we have a plan to like, we're gonna make sure that we use these BCSAF funds this year. But we also, right now, may have to use BCSAF funds to supplement our 60 over people if HCCBG funding doesn't come through for the next, because of the federal shutdown. And what's happening with that is, we know we can approve, because we had an in-home aid agency that when they found out they might not get funding, they just quit serving our clients without telling us. And so we found out about it and we were like,
Premier.
no, like we needed to know this. And so we have told them that they can definitely count on money through the end of November, because our director has said that for sure. But we also are going to be able to pull some from BCSAF if we need to for those adults that are over 60. So all that to say, it is low right now, and we also weren't billed a little bit for that. So it's gonna be lower. So anyway, we have a plan.
Interesting times.
Jeff.
My observation was, that Evelyn, I'm sure I'm mispronouncing it, has already spent all of their funding. And Mountain Aging Partners seem to be low, and I also noticed that they were only at 15% on the HCCBG. Also, so. So Zach, I hate putting things on you, but do you have any idea about what's going on with their transportation?
I would assume that they fund transportation through Mountain Mobility. With the HCCBG funding, I think that was what the plan was this was gonna go to hire a separate
Oh, okay.
transportation company, and Mountain Mobility was going to be used with Home and Community Care Block Grant, and Mountain Mobility has restrictions as of routes and things like that, so that's really the only thing I can think of, but I can ask.
I appreciate that.
Evelyn, that's kind of concerning, because what you're saying, Susan, is that they have used a lot of their money, right? 48% of the funds are spent, and we're early on. Am I on the right? No.
It's 100.
100%. I'm sorry. My glasses are at the office. The sunglasses are gonna do no help. but it's not even winter. That's my point.
Well,
So that's concerning.
and Evelyn Charities, told me that they always use this funding right off the bat.
Hmm.
So they get a lot of funding from other sources, but they use this one right off the bat.
Well, they have,
Yeah,
they have.
and I knew it was coming because they told me.
Okay. I don't, I just. I didn't remember that comment, so I apologize. Um. Okay. I think that's. There's nothing else on the units of service or the Buncombe County Aging funds. I guess we are ready to move on to our discussion. About our purpose. I think y'all might remember that, was it last Friday, last Thursday? Billy had reminded me earlier in the week that I owed, a document to the county commissioners. And in that document request, there was also a request for your bylaws, which, Billy, as always on the ball, had a copy of, which I did not. And so that kind of, brought together the comment that I made in the agenda here about, adding purpose, because if we look at the bylaws here, the Article 1 says name and purpose. But Section 1 says name, Section 2 says mission, not purpose. So my thought process was to include, change Section 2 mission to Section 3 mission, and to put the purpose as what I had indicated in the annual report to the county commissioners, which was the purpose for our committee is to support and enhance the quality of life of older county residents and their caregivers. To allow older adults to live safely at home or in the least restrictive environment, and also to provide transportation and opportunities for social interaction to reduce isolation.
Pretty much says it.
Sounds good.
I mean, that's kind of what I just took pieces from everybody's suggestion. So that's our purpose.
So can we move that we adopt the purpose statement for our bylaws as you just proposed?
We can, so let me just clarify that the committee, oh, do we have a quorum?
There's 6. Out of 8, so.
Okay,
Quorum is half.
6, oh, sorry, Deborah. Okay, so the motion would be to amend the bylaws to include Section 2 purpose as written in our agenda, and to change Section 2, the current Section 2 mission to Section 3 mission. So we have Section 1 is name, Section 2 is purpose, and Section 3 would be mission. It stays, are we clear? I kind of muddled that. Okay. So that's I think the mission or the motion on the floor. Any, motion for that. Second?
Second.
Oh, okay, Deborah, second. Okay, all, any discussion? No. Okay, all in favor? Aye.
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 Okay. Looks like we have a bylaw change.
And I noticed in our bylaws at the end that we have to get approval from the county commissioners. So I guess I'll send it to the, deputy clerk of the board and she can forward it to the county commissioner.
Thank you. Yes.
I had a meeting today for, all the people that are liaisons to these boards. So, that was mentioned. Yeah, and I knew that we had it in the bylaws too. That it has to be approved by them.
That we can make the motion, but it's not approved until the commissioners approve it. Is that?
Yeah, yeah,
We can offer the suggestion that we would like to do this.
yeah, it's not,
Okay. Keep us straight, Billy.
and that report, annual report you did was wonderful. And I think it's great information adding the, FY 25 year-end summary, because the commissioners are gonna see what was accomplished with this funding. And at the meeting today, all the advisory committees, well, everyone had to write a written report, but some of the boards have to go in front of the commissioners, but they can choose to ask advisory committees to come too. So I'm just giving you a heads up, just in case, Susan.
I don't know if they want to see my face anymore. They've had enough of me. But I mean, the annual report was very straightforward, just, what's your meeting time, who's the members, what was the summary, of what we did, what was the purpose. And then there's the accomplishments and activities. Well, I said the accomplishments are those of the grantees, not of us personally. And then the upcoming goals would be refine the committee's mission statement, which we've done. Review and update grant application, which is the next on our agenda. And then lastly, to encourage providers to build capacity within the environment of reduced funding. And I did attach both of the bylaws and the year-end summary, which kudos to Billy again for pulling all that together, and I did thank them again for providing funding for the fiscal year of 26. Okay, the hard part. This is the hard part. I feel like we do this every year. We actually go over and review and analyze the application and the documents,
I'm
so.
sorry, can I back up and ask
Yes.
one question?
Oh, sure.
Okay. So I'm looking at the units of service here, and we have units served but not reimbursed.
Mhm.
Okay, so fiscal legal has 342, which I assume adds up to their 653%. Do these others also include units served but not reimbursed in their percent of grant served?
Yes. Because fiscal legal operates off of, or legal services operates off of a different pay schedule than the rest of them. Fiscal legal per the Division of Aging gets paid out 100% of what they spend up until the
Right, okay,
up until their budgeted service costs. The others have to go by 1/12 payments. So while it may show that they have units served but not reimbursed currently, if no spending were to happen, hypothetically, if no spending were to happen, the funds that, or the units that show served but not reimbursed would be drawn down next month to be paid out.
okay, so for most of them, if it's less than $100%, this ends up on next month? I'm
If
looking at,
it's over the 25% that they currently are at, or should be
Okay.
at. So you, yes,
okay.
so you'll
That
notice anyone
doesn't make
that,
sense to me, but that's.
essentially what it is it's so like Susan said, we see that group respite is already 93% of their grant served. They can only be paid out for 25% of their grant, which means as of right now, they have 93
Okay.
units served but not reimbursed.
But fiscal legal has 100% of the grant used. Right,
Correct,
but they still have units of service not reimbursed,
correct.
and they're not gonna, so they have served these people, they're not gonna reimburse because they've reached their payment.
100%,
No,
correct.
they've reached their funding limit.
Also, while we're back on this, I did get an email from Elizabeth, she's listening in. She said that the reason Mountain Mobility is underspent in HCCBG is that they are waiting for some corrected invoices to come in from Mountain Mobility. And once they come in, they'll be added to future units of service report, so.
I admire that woman, she's always on top of things. Always on. Eileen, are we okay?
Sort of.
Another way of describing it, I think, would be that fiscal legal is carrying receivables
Okay,
for work done already for which they have not been paid.
and for which they will not be paid. Well,
Correct.
by us, it will be
Correct.
paid by somebody else.
Correct.
You don't know that.
Right.
But they are being paid by somebody else.
Right.
So they can only be paid 1/12 each month, is that?
Regular providers can only be paid 1/12 each month. Legal providers can be paid up to 100% from the very beginning of the year.
I mean, I guess it still doesn't make sense to me. And I'm sorry, this is probably just my problem to say 653% of the grant has been served when the grant was exhausted. Apparently. 553% ago.
I think it's like a grant equivalent, you know, you only you only have so much grant money, we spent it all, but we perform services above and beyond that, which the system requires that they input all the units of
Okay.
service.
And nobody else does that.
They all do that. We ask everyone to enter units in even up into 100%, or rather over 100% of their grant served, because at the end of the year, there's always money that needs to exchange from one provider to another in order to have us be 100% spent.
Okay.
So it's just a way for us to identify who is over their grant allotted amount and who could take in more funding if it becomes available.
Okay. You go ahead.
Okay,
Sorry.
that's quite all right. No, I wanted to make sure that you were, your questions were answered. Review of the application and scoring tool. I struggle with this a lot. And, I think. And I wanna apologize. First off, when I sent out the invite, I did not include a copy of the blank aging grant, so Zach kindly found a copy and printed it out for us, so now that you have something you can take home and look at. I also got information from Suzanne, and I think would you feel comfortable talking about? Okay, yeah, the scoring tool.
Yeah, so when I looked at the scoring tool, you know, I found myself unable to think about it outside of the context of the application itself, but more to the point, what we want to know from our applicants and what we should know from them. I have a number of reactions here. Right from the get-go, it wasn't in my service with the committee, it wasn't clear to me why we were asked to provide numerical scores to information that's not quantitative by nature. You know, we are not their operational auditor, we're not their financial auditor, that's not our remit, and we don't have the resources to do that anyway, even if we wanted to. So it wasn't clear to me what was the purpose of the numerical scoring. And initially I thought, well, maybe the grant interface software takes our scores, puts them together, and comes up with some kind of first pass priority funding suggestion, which it doesn't do. But, okay, you know, what's the purpose of the scoring tool? I think as I commented the last time, this past year and last year, I actually didn't take the time to fill it out, because typically what I do is I take the applications, I go through them, I go to the websites, and then I put together my spreadsheet. And since the scoring tool didn't seem to serve a purpose, in the interest of time, I just kind of skipped it. However, because we are thinking about the scoring tool and its point, I went through it and said, okay, what would I want to know? Or what question should I be asked as I'm going through applications and filling out a document like this? Because maybe there's a practical reason why. You know, I don't know what it is. Now, maybe we want some kind of record of the fact that we've not just downloaded the applications, but commented on it in some minimum way. So I quickly went through it, basically took the document in Word and said, okay, you know, what would I prefer to see? Like, you want to do the document if you'd like?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna demonstrate a community need. I said, okay, you know, well-defined, you know, what do we know about community need? We know about community need as a function of our personal experience, work in healthcare, our work in senior services, our work as social workers, you know, our experience taking care of elders. You know, and that's experience, and then we have subjective perspective on what's needed in the community. We probably all have slightly different senses of where the critical need might be. So I said, okay, skip the demonstrated community need, maybe call it well-defined community question, yes or no. You know, I'm not sure, you know, how do you score in-home aid, you know, in-home aid versus Meals on Wheels versus transportation, they're all critical. You know, I can't someone give 1 a 5 and the other one a 2, it made no sense to me. And part of what we're scoring here too is a grant writer skill. So that was my suggestion for that first section. Then in the next section under project plan, you know, I said, okay, maybe just call it program plan and have, what I have 3 questions here. Is the plan well defined? Yes or no? Are the client numbers or service units well defined? Yes or no? Do the quality measures make sense? Yes or no? It's simple, straightforward. You know, that's just kind of what I want to know. Then with coordination, well, I had more questions, but in the most simple sense, you know, I thought, okay, a couple of questions. Do other agencies provide the same or a similar service? Yes or no? All these agencies should have some idea of what the competition is. And I think a question about redundancy came up, I think 3 meetings ago, when our guest, I'm sorry, I don't remember her name, the woman who was considering joining our committee. And she questioned whether, how do we know that there are not redundancies? Why do you have more than 1 or 2 agencies who provide the same basic service? Like in home aid, and you know, I was giving that some thought. I said, okay, I don't know how many agencies in the county provide the service, so I went and asked the internet. Was directed, I think, to the Land of Sky website. Or Office of the Aging, I'm not sure, but there's a list on the website, and I can look it up at home and forward it to y'all if you want. And it lists something like 18 agencies that I've never heard of before. In my time on the committee, they've never applied to us for funding. Maybe these are the agencies that the county outsources work to, I don't know. But the question becomes, you know, who coordinates with whom? And then here's the hard question, do the agencies or the applicant providing the services meet or exceed the need within the community. How would they know? You know, the perception on my part certainly is that there's more need than there is service, but that's just a function of talking to people. Hearing stories about someone quitting their job so they could stay home with their parents because they couldn't afford to bring in aid services. You know, but it's a simple question that I don't know most of them could answer, you know, do the agencies providing the service meet or exceed the community need? Yes or no?
I think only if they were an agency that has a wait list or something that shows that, you know, yeah. Anyway.
And there may be a database somewhere with some of this information. I have not found such a thing.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I was wondering if some of our data already showed whether they were getting more than what we were reimbursing. Like,
Right.
obviously, fiscal legal uses it that way, but nobody else seems to,
right, it's
or.
the data that we have available to us doesn't appear, at least to me, to be complete and robust for that purpose. So, you know, and another question I do have, is the coordination with other agencies adequately described? Yes or no? And at least to my recollection, you know, typically the way that question seems to be answered most of the time is we refer to fiscal legal. We get referrals from doctors or the hospital or social services or what have you. You know, but I think with coordination, because social services delivery is outsourced by the government to a whole host of agencies. I don't know how getting a firm sense of how much capacity there is out there is something we have access to. I know when I've advocated for someone who needed social services, you know, I had to be fairly aggressive using the internet, picking up the phone, smiling and dialing, asking social workers or anyone whose phone number I can find, you know, is there help for this problem and where would I go to get it? Which of course leads to the question, you know, what happens if clients don't have advocates? You know, have prospective clients, that is.
But then I would say this, from my perspective, within the coordination question, I feel like there is a need for, let's see, how do I put this? I feel like it would be, make an intelligent argument or make me feel like that the agency that's applying for the funding has a more holistic and global understanding of the problem, if they're not the only ones trying to fix the problem, that they're trying to collaborate with other resources and include them in. If they're trying to reinvent the wheel and not use the resources available to them, I don't see that they're going to be very sustainable or make an impact. So I think that maybe the coordination piece needs to be reworded to about like how do you collaborate with other resources in the community to serve the elderly population. But I think that it is the key because not everybody can, not just one agency can do it all.
Right. And I can say that when I have advocated for someone who needed services, what surprised me, again, this was different in a different state, was the lack of comprehensive knowledge on the part of the social workers involved in a given agency in what was available out there. There was one social worker, as an example, an adult protective, who said, you know, I think he qualifies for TBI waiver. This was early days. Naturally, I asked, what's TBI waiver? It's, you know, Medicaid waiver program serves for people with brain injury. But this was early days for me. I've never heard of these things before. And the response I got from the social worker was, I don't know. She had heard of it, didn't know what it was. I figured out about 5 minutes to the internet and a few phone calls. But there isn't always an awareness within the sector of what other participants in the sector with the same client base do.
Well, sure, like we do in-home aid, but it's not like I'm calling every in-home aid agency, because we have 3 that we contract with. So it's not like we're gonna be calling all the in-home aid agencies to be like, you have a wait list of people who can't pay, like, like, we wouldn't have the capacity to do that, so that's, yeah, I don't know how you hold people accountable for that, I guess, is what.
Okay, this is again. Maybe a little, I used to do the same thing as we're doing here for a board that worked with homeless people, okay. So one of the things that was a lot easier was that we didn't have that much trouble figuring out how many homeless people there were and what the problems were, and it was also somewhat easier to count who moved in. The problem, which was, well, may or may not be different, is that where homeless people kept moving in. But just in terms of defining the problem, I don't think that was that much of a problem. One of the things, though, in terms of just coordination, and I'm wondering if some of the same stuff is going on here, is that there were agencies, this was conceived to be something that to a degree coordinated services into what we're talking about doing, but there were also groups that would not participate because they didn't want to be stuck with certain requirements that went along with federal funding and so forth and so on. So we ended up sort of compartmentalizing in terms of the ones that would, accept the requirements that went along with the federal funding. So when I look at this, I mean, I don't know how we get a handle on what the problem is. And there doesn't seem to be a way, I mean, I don't know of a way to do that. And I'm like you, I talk to you, especially I just made a note, I know somebody who would like to know about a TBI waiver, if you can tell me about that. But, okay. I mean, I hear stories and I know people and I had a friend, call me not too long ago because, she was in her house and couldn't move around, all this other stuff and wanted someone to stay with her. I mean, I don't know where to go for those things. And I'm sure lots of people don't, and I'm sure she's not, I know this person isn't on anybody's list.
That might be something to add, I think that is something to add to the collaboration. Or somewhere in here, if we shift to the application, it's like, okay, how do prospective clients find you?
That's a good.
Because if you've ever been really sick, like with mono maybe, or I don't know, pneumonia, or whatever it is, you reach a point in your head, you may be cognitively there, but you're kind of okay. You're not running at your normal speed. And if you're really in a lot of pain, you're not gonna be sitting there at the computer saying, I need help with this, let me try to figure out where to go to get it. So unless you come from a family that has been on services at some point, or you have a relative who's a social worker in some context, I don't know how someone like that without a friend and family advocate actually finds and accesses help.
Well, they probably get sick enough to go in the hospital and then they get a social
If they
worker.
do, yeah, exactly.
They don't have resources and they get adult protective services support.
There you go. That's it. That's the other
Yeah.
route. Yes.
So so I'm sorry, Suzanne, but your comment about going to the application, well, and I appreciate Zach and copying these for us because the question number 14 is how do you coordinate with other agencies providing similar services and what are your shared goals? So
And that's what I was referencing to when I made my comment, was that statement right there. And maybe, if there's a scoring way to go with it, that it is, the applicant lists one agency that they partner with, or, and that gives them one. I don't. Kind of like a rubric.
Yeah, at one point, I said, forget the scoring tool, and it jumped into the application, but then it just became a mishigash, because the scoring tool does have a different outline. And so I said, all right, let's just go to the scoring tool and back into the application later.
Well, I want to be respectful of everyone's time, so we have a little less than 10 minutes for our meeting here. If you want to finish up, Suzanne, on the scoring tool, and then perhaps we can decide on next steps.
Yeah, my only question about the budget was, is the budget clear and reasonable? Yes or no? Overall, instead of the, overall program value, the program has high value, moderate value, low value, click a box kind of thing. Is more information from the applicant recommended? Because I know that come up with us in the past. And then finally, do you recommend funding this project? If yes, at what level, and additional comments? It simplifies the scoring sheet, but I think perhaps we need to jump into the application and do that some more.
And looking at the application, I think, looking at the application and the notes from last meeting, the notes from last meeting, page 2, for B, committee members also discussed the application set of questions. We put in the application to discuss how the clients find out about the services, are providers aware of services that other providers offer, do providers serve clients to do providers serve clients to other providers if they're not able to help refer, I'm sorry. If they're not able to help their clients, how do they coordinate services? So, all good questions. And as many times as I look at this application, I feel there's always a way to improve it. I think one of the comments, and I can't remember when, was in the current environment, we should probably remove the diversity, equity, and inclusion section. Just to keep it clean, so that there's no questions come up in the future. And I'm wondering if we don't put more of, and it's kind of hard to describe, but if you go to like the billing and it questions 8, 9, 10, 11, and all the, calculation of dollars, I'm wondering if that doesn't go kind of towards the end and we bring some of our questions up in the forefront, like performance measures, coordination.
Yeah.
Maybe not necessarily getting rid of anything in there, but just, emphasis is going to be more on, we want to hear about your service first, and then towards the end, what are the funds that you require? So that would be my thought process.
I think that makes sense. The source of this application. How did it get put together originally? Is it now a combination of things that have changed over many years, or?
I do not know for my time.
I think it's been changed over this has been a simpler application that I know that we changed, but I don't know how it first came to be.
I think it's originated with Buncombe County, because even before, when we were lead for the county, we still relied on the county to open up the applications virtually. So I think it's just been kind of built upon and built upon and built upon.
It has that feel.
So, perhaps, in terms of homework, then, um. Everybody put on their thinking caps. I will make an effort to send out a copy of this blank one tomorrow, so everybody has an electronic copy. Up and available for them to do whatever you like with it. And I don't know, Suzanne, we can add the scoring tool that you sent. And go from there. Two things before we conclude, I guess I made a note to myself about the application and scoring tool and something to think about for next year when we start allocating is perhaps we need to reduce the estimated allocation. Since we didn't get what we thought we would get this year, so that was just a thought. And then Billy brought to my attention the fact that holidays are coming up and November and December meeting dates fall very close to a holiday. I am wondering if people feel that they could, we could get a reasonable updated application by next meeting in November and not have a December meeting, or what? Or keep both dates open and make a decision in November. And then I think, Suzanne, you're looking at your calendar for November.
Yeah, the fourth Thursday is the day before Thanksgiving, and Thanksgiving's the 27th, which I think is what the document calendar means.
I won't be here on the 27th.
So, Billy, in the past, you said we went just a week earlier, is that
The 19th.
the 19th? Okay. All right, so we will, if it's okay with everybody, we'll say November 19th. We'll do. How about a 3:30 to 5? Give us another half hour to go through the application. And then determine whether or not we need to meet in December.
Yeah, the fourth Wednesday in December is Christmas Eve, so that's not fun.
It's also my birthday. So. Maybe tentatively think of December 17th, we'll make that decision at the next meeting. It works for me. Deborah, what do you think?
I'm good.
You just put your
All
thumb
that
up.
just to say I'm good, yeah.
Okay. All right, so the 19th we'll have an hour and a half. We'll try to pull together a good updated nicely flowing application and scoring tool that we can live with and see where we are at the end of that meeting in terms of December. Hey. All right, well, I think that's about all. Does anybody have any last comments, questions, concerns?
So I have a question.
Oh.
When it comes, is this a PDF or a Word document? It affects my ease of use of GPT.
It's a Word document, I believe.
Oh, good.
Yeah, it was, yeah, I think it was a PDF and I translated it to Word, so that we could
That's
actually play with it.
Yeah.
Okay, and I'm not sure where Dan is or Taylor, but I'll when I send out the application in Word, I will share our decision about the schedule. And we'll go from there. Okay. Well, as always, this is the best group of folks I could ever want to work with. Thank you so much, and goodbye, everybody on the line.